Late summer is one of my favorite times in the kitchen. The days are so warm, the produce is at its absolute best, but honestly, I don't want to spend hours cooking. In this video, I'll show you a few quick and easy meals that make the most out of fresh seasonal flavors. They're simple, delicious, and perfect for savoring these last golden days of summer. Pasta is one of those easy dishes that I like to make quite often, and even though I often make my own sourdough pasta, I was super happy to find sourdough pasta in the store. You know that something is a thing when it goes mainstream and you can actually buy it. And often I just cook with whatever I have in my kitchen and I think about the flavors. And when there's an abundance of zucchini from our own garden and from our friend's garden, and you know the saying that if you have too much zucchini, you don't have enough friends. Anyhow, I try to make the most of it and always think about what else I can do with zucchini or summer squash. And I thought about a pasta sauce, and the creaminess and the not very distinct taste of summer squash lends itself really well to this pasta. I sauteed it with some garlic, and I like to saute it down just to evaporate most of the water and bring out the zucchini flavor. And the yellow zucchini is probably really good for that. I also love pasta dishes just because they are so versatile and there's so many different things you can do with pasta and the sauces. Over here, the zucchini is cutting down on the moisture, and I'm adding pine nuts just because I wanted a little bit of taste interest. And to beef up this recipe just a little bit and make it a little bit more hearty and sustaining, I'm adding white beans, which is actually really interesting, and I absolutely loved how this recipe turned out. It was actually really well received by my family, who loved the explosion of flavors and also of textures. And if you know anything about me, you know that I love using fresh goat cheese, especially in the summer. The creaminess of it, the saltiness, and the cheesy, some people call it umami flavor, just lends itself really well. And even if you're not a big fan of goat milk, I'm not either, I really don't feel like you can taste that in this fresh goat cheese, but it just adds that flavor and that taste component that just brings the whole dish together. I also found some fresh basil in our garden, and I'm adding that for a pop of color and just a little bit more taste interest. And what couldn't be better than a bowl of steaming hot pasta with some freshly grated Parmesan on top. Thank you to hungryroot for sponsoring this video. I love hungryroot because it makes eating whatever your healthy is so easy. Here's how it works. hungryroot builds personalized meal plans and groceries tailored to your tastes and your needs. Each week, they'll suggest options for you, from quick breakfasts to nourishing snacks to easy dinners, and you can edit your box to get exactly what you like. Then they'll deliver everything straight to your door. Most recipes take less than 15 minutes, so you can cook, eat, and enjoy without the stress. And the best part, by skipping takeout and cutting down on food waste, you can save up to 40% each week. And hungryroot customers report real results. 90% feel healthier, 93% have more energy, and 96% feel less stressed after using hungryroot. Be sure to click on my special code below in the description box that will give you 40% off your first delivery plus one free gift. Eat healthier, live better. That's hungryroot. The dinners I chose from hungryroot were really basic, simple dinners, and I love that the ingredients are fresh, like this summer squash, and now we're getting even more summer squash, but it's in season, and if you eat in season, you typically tend to save money, because when produce is in season, it tends to be a lot cheaper than when, for example, you're trying to buy strawberries in winter when they actually don't want to grow. And this is a really simple dish of some onions and some zucchini, and then I have some shrimp over there that I'm sauteing and putting in my skillet with a dash of fresh lemon on top of it, just to bring everything together. And I like to take some liberties with the recipes, and even though hungryroot gives you the full recipe and everything, including how long it's going to take to cook this dish and everything else, I always like to do a little bit of my own thing. On really, really hot days, I've been loving my air fryer, and I have tomatoes in here. I have some more summer squash and some white beans for. You can tell that lately I have been a bit on a white bean kick, but I think they're really versatile. They're really inexpensive. They add a lot of fiber and a lot of protein, and they don't have a very strong taste, so they go with a lot. And here is another of my favorite, that goat cheese. I always get the really big logs, so they will last me a bit. And this is just the perfect topping for this dish that I made up on the fly, and I just had something in my mind what I could do with these various ingredients, and then just see how it turns out. I put that in the air fryer, more on that in just a little bit, and put it in there for just about 7 minutes. And here it is. I was actually really happy, and for some reason we had a bunch of naan bread in the refrigerator, and again I'm trying to make the most of what we have instead of always buying something new, and this is where I'm serving up just a really simple summer dish, really light and easy. From hungryroot, we also got this Thai-style chicken with vegetables, and that's something I don't typically make very often, but that's another reason I enjoy getting meals and meal kits from boxes, because then oftentimes I make something that I don't usually have in my own rotation, and it just kind of expands my repertoire a little bit. This is not exactly how the recipe had me do things, but I just always like to find a way of how to simplify it and how to cut on time and how to make it just a little bit easier and taking complicated steps out of it. But this dish really couldn't be any simpler. You just pour the sauce over the sauteed vegetables. You kind of want to brown them a little bit and add the chicken and the sauce, and then you serve it over white rice, and it was a really yummy dinner. We really enjoyed that, and it was really delicious. We've been having a lot of hot days, and especially on hot days, I do not want to be in the kitchen and turn up the heat with our gas stove, because it does emit quite a bit of heat, and oftentimes I have the venting fan on just to get rid of some of the rising heat and move it out of the kitchen, because I just don't want to get any hotter. And anyhow, so it also doesn't really make me want to cook, and I'm often not really that hungry. For this recipe, I browned some butter. That's always really yummy. And then we had some ravioli and just a simple salad on the side, fresh grated Parmesan on top of the ravioli. And that was a really light, easy summer dish that we actually had al fresco in the garden. The sweet potato burgers were a bit of an add-on, and I put them in my air fryer. Again, we're going to talk about that just a little bit more. And I thought about what else I could do with it. And I had this idea for a Southwest-inspired dish. And sometimes you surprise yourself with what you can do and what you can find and the flavors you can create. So we had a just basic green shredded lettuce on the bottom, some fresh tomatoes from the garden. There was a lime that came with the box, and I thought that was really perfect as a base for my dressing, and then some sour cream, because that's what I had envisioned. I mix that up, and then I add some cumin, because that is such a Mexican-inspired spice that I always think is really good. And cilantro, when I have a big bunch, I chop it all up and freeze it for later. It's not the same as fresh, but it does serve the purpose. And then some sriracha, because I wanted some spiciness and a little bit of that sweetness. And then I needed to work on the seasonings a little bit with salt, and then I actually added a little bit of just a dash of sugar and some more lime. And here are the sweet potato burgers. They just go right on top of the salad. And you could have easily done this with just sweet potatoes and some beans, and I think that would have created a similar dish on top of a salad. I always love to grate my cheese fresh. This is a chunk of cheese that I had lurking in the fridge and ready to be used up. It is so much cheaper than buying shredded cheese, and healthier because it doesn't have the added cellulose. The dressing goes right on top. It turned out a little spicier than I had imagined, but I loved it. It was really fresh and easy and yummy. Another personal favorite of mine is salmon burgers or salmon patties, and it could not be easier as a pantry dish to get out some cans of salmon, and then I always have some stale bread. I never throw it out because I can always make my own breadcrumbs, and they live in a little container, and that is just perfect for the patties. Here they are, and it's always homemade. And all you really do is, this couldn't be simpler, you add the canned salmon. This was in water. You can also use oil, but you really want to drain it, and add that to a bowl. Add an egg or two, and then season it with salt and pepper. And then all you do is you add your breadcrumbs to it and mix it up into a good consistency where you can form patties and burgers out of it. And then it will go into my air fryer silicone basket. I like that a little bit better because there actually is Teflon in the air fryer basket, and that's why I like to use that silicone insert. I put the salmon patties right in the basket, and then I'm going to show you where our setup is, because the air fryer cuts down on cooking time, but it also creates a little bit of heat, and especially when you have something fishy, it smells. That's why our air fryer lives in the garage, and I actually thought that I would have the air fryer for another video and then probably just get rid of it, because I am really picky about what appliances I have in my kitchen. But the air fryer is one of those appliances that I use, especially in the summer, all the time, and we do like to cook fish, and we don't like the fish smell lingering in the house. This is a leftover from the other night, and that also was another really easy summer dish that is ready in 35 minutes or less. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.